Alastair, thanks very much for taking the time to speak with us this afternoon. Now, you've just returned from what's surely one of the most challenging filming experiences of your entire career as an adventure filmmaker.
Absolutely, yeah.
Filming an attempted free ascent of the 1,000-metre north face of Mount Asgard on Baffin Island in the Canadian Arctic. Clearly, a filming project like this has never been attempted before.
No, I would say, I would imagine really, certainly from all the climate, the expedition films that I've seen, that I don't think anyone's really tried to film an ascent of this scale with the kind of equipment that we had. You know, we had full high-def cameras up there, we had medium format stills cameras.
Sure. And on a wall so high and so remote and obviously so cold, presents huge logistical challenges. I mean, you're what, 5 days walk and a 20-mile boat ride from the nearest civilization?
Yeah. Okay, so the nearest town is kind of Pangnirtung, and normally the traditional route to get there is kind of half a day on a boat, about 20 miles, and then it's a 5-day hike from where the boat drops you off. And you say 5-day hike, and that's pretty full on. It's river crossings, there's quicksand, there's sand dunes, there's
not a gentle stroll, in other
loose
words.
moraines. Yeah, there's no footpath anywhere.
Sure.
So it's pretty full on just getting to the place. But what was amazing, and particularly not just from an adventure point of view, but from a filmmaking point of view, was that we hired a DC-3 to airdrop all our equipment to the base of Mount Asgard. And once we'd done that, we then circled up a bit higher to gain a bit of altitude. And Leo, Stanley and Carlos then jumped out of the plane and skydived in.
Landed on the glacier.
And landed right at the base of the route, which I think is a first, as far as I know. For a mountaineering expedition, I've never
Certainly unconventional.
I've never heard of a mountaineering expedition where the climbers skydive in. So that was something. And then obviously I'm not a skydiver, and there's another 4 of us ground crew who then had to go back to Pangnirtung and do the walk in, which was good because we had satellite phones, laptops, solar panels, and obviously all this kind of...
It's been a huge logistical operation just getting that amount of equipment to base camp.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, to be fair, Leo was pretty much in charge of all that. I had to deal with the technology side of it, and because we were shooting on solid state, not tapes,
right.
so we had the kind of 3 external hard drives as well, and a laptop and 2 EX1 cameras, these Sony cameras that record on solid state. And obviously, there's no way we're ever going to be kicking all that out of an airplane.
Sure.
So that somebody
seem unwise.
Yeah, and you saw in the film there was a spot of bother with one of the haul bags that cratered. So it was a big operation just getting it all in there. But amazingly, we did get it all in, and it did all work. And this was all new to me. You know, I'd never used solar panels before. I'd never used a satellite phone before.
And you didn't have any technical hitches in terms of charging batteries.
Well, it all worked really well, actually, a lot better than I thought it was going to. Except for, of course, the weather got bad, and because we're so far north, the sun wasn't very strong, so charging the solar panel battery was kind of difficult when the weather was bad, and then it would have issues.
So you really need a sunny day to fully charge.
Yeah. And it was sunny for the first week or so, and then, as you see in the film, the weather gradually
deteriorated as
it
the
just
trip
deteriorates.
progressed.
It very quickly goes from the Arctic summer into the autumn, which is basically winter.
And this must have presented, huge challenges in terms of filming the climbers high on the wall. I've seen the footage. Appalling conditions just to be out, let alone to be free climbing or indeed trying to film someone free climbing.
Yeah.
So we're talking about snow, high winds.
And just how cold it was as well. The other thing to bear in mind when it's so cold is how it kills your motivation.
Absolutely.
Nobody wanted to get up in the morning. You didn't want to get out of your sleeping bag.
Let alone get on Jumar up a rope.
Yeah, Jumar, and the camera bag was about 15 kilos, so to try to Jumar with that bag was a nightmare. And Jason ended up hauling most of the camera equipment most of the time because I just don't have the same fitness level as those guys. So it was just a big enough deal for me, not only fitness-wise but mentally as well. It was just so scary Jumar in those middle pitches.
It must have been extraordinarily challenging, bearing in mind the central section of the route you climbed in Inukshuk, this Swiss aid route done back in 1998. Was consistently overhanging for 6 or 7 pitches?
Yeah, I would say probably the middle kind of 7 pitches or so. We're all
hugely exposed.
Yeah, the exposure was like nothing I'd ever experienced, no doubt about it. And for me, my favourite scene, and it's actually possibly my favourite footage that I've ever captured of somebody climbing, and I think it's the pivotal scene in the film, is when Stanley tries to free what was a hard aid pitch anyway, and then he tries to free climb it, which he did manage to do in the end. Yeah, and it was unbelievably cold. Yeah. We'd been that morning. We'd been in an ice storm, and everything was covered in ice.
Ropes covered in ice.
Yeah, and you see where he's jumaring up to it. There's just ice all over the place. But we kind of had to get something done. We had to try and get something in the can.
And well, congratulations. I mean, it's an extremely powerful piece of climbing footage.
Yeah, no, and not only was I frightened about the sheer exposure of the situation, but I was terrified of Stanley. Like, it was so tense. And the guy, he's basically, I describe him as the world's nicest psycho. He's a lovely guy, but when he's upset, I'm quivering, and when I'm the one that, in a way, we'd only kind of gone out that afternoon to film something, and it obviously wasn't really on, and he was really trying to do some free climbing and he tries so hard to keep it together, but ultimately he has this massive meltdown. And that's a culmination of all the frustrations of the trip, really.
Sure. Just obviously bearing that scene in mind, I mean, clearly you face some, both the climbers and for you as a director, face some extremely severe conditions on this wall. I mean, what do you think was logistically or strategically or practically the hardest part of all of the filming that you were doing?
Just all the jumaring was really, really hard, especially because the camera pack was so heavy. And the fourth pitch when I started jumaring that, you've kind of got to lower yourself out, so it's pretty scary. You've got to abseil out into all this massive void before you can even start swinging on the rope and jumaring up. And the first time I tried that, I had a complete nightmare. And Leo was really great, as he always is, very supportive, trying to encourage me, keep me going. Yeah. And I was completely bricking myself, and it was at this massive kind of realization that, oh my God, this 15 meters is killing me. How on earth am I going to get to the top of this thing? It was like in that moment, it was like, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be able to get up this thing.
That's fascinating, Alan. Just as a final question, I'm really intrigued as to how a hugely challenging filming experience like this has changed your perception of the possibilities of adventure filmmaking that might be open to you in the future.
Definitely, yeah. Well, I think with this project, I've kind of really found my element as a filmmaker, really. I think I love being in the bigger landscape, in the wild places.
Remote places, huge walls.
Yeah, and what's great about this kind of adventure is you get a compelling story. Because
it's a real adventure, real journey.
Things are going to go wrong. There's no way it's not going to go wrong. So you've got all these factors, and I think I work best when things are really hard and when it's really tough. To be able to keep getting that camera out and keep thinking about the direction of the film and what shots we need. And I think that's kind of where I'm in my element, really. So for sure, I think rather than making another climbing DVD about single pitch climbing around Britain, I'd rather get into expedition, more adventure-based stuff where you've got the team, the character development, and
the narrative to
the story, and the amazing landscape.